Welcome to your FAQ for real estate. That's frequently asked questions. And what we're going to talk about today are some acronyms, because for some of y'all, you get an email from a realtor and it's got all these letters down at the bottom and you don't have the foggiest idea what any of it means. Well, welcome, friends. I'm going to clear it up for you. So here we go. At the bottom of anybody's email could be their state association. I'm in North Carolina, so I may have NCR on something. That's the North Carolina Realtors. I'm also a realtor in South Carolina, so you might see SCR, that's the South Carolina Realtors. If you're in Tennessee, you might see the TAR, Tennessee Association of Realtors, or TR, Tennessee Realtors, just like Texas Realtors is TR. So the abbreviations might drive you nuts. Just know that in real estate, you can have a license from the state real estate commission, from the regulatory agency, but not all people who carry a real estate license are realtors. That's those of us that belong to the trade association. By the way, one of the perks of the trade association in North and South Carolina is those beautiful statewide standardized forms when it comes to you buying and selling property. That allows your realtor to have very clear and concise paperwork that's up to speed and also approved by the Bar Association. If, however, you live in a state like Ohio, there are no statewide forms, so you have different forms for different associations and brokerages, which is why when you move to North and South Carolina, you're going, oh, you people are amazing. We know. All right, you might also see NAR, that's the National Association of Realtors, but sometimes people get mixed up and call it the NRA. That's the National Rifle Association. It's two different things altogether, although we are concerned about realtor safety as realtors, so there's a lot of us that are very wisely thinking about our safety. You'll also hear about AEs. Those are association executives. They run the Trade Association of Realtors, whether it is at the local level. Here I belong to the Central Carolina Realtors, which is Cabarrus, Rowan, well, parts of Rowan, Stanley County, Montgomery County, because Rowan County also falls in with the Salisbury Rowan Realtors, and frankly, all of us belong to Canopy, which is the Canopy Realtors, used to be the Greater Charlotte and Charlotte Regional Realtors. The association membership has more to do with who you hang out with and whether you like small or large than anything else. There's also different groups inside real estate. There's the Alliance, which is the LBGTQIA plus crowd. There's ARIA, which is the Asian Association of Realtors. There's the NAREP, the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, and there's NAREB, the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, which is also the Realtist, which is our Black affiliate group. And so if you're wondering why there's all these different groups, because you also have the Women's Council of Realtors, who used to be called WCR, but now they don't want to be called WCR, you call it Women's Council. It's because birds of a feather flock together, and so people like to hang out with those who understand them, and you can join any of those groups even if you're not part of the groups. I tend to be a member of every group that will let me in, and then I can learn about people, make friends, and hang out. You never know. All right, then we have the BICs. In North Carolina, you hear about BICs. That's a broker in charge. Some states call them supervising brokers, but in every office in North Carolina, you have to have a broker in charge, even though everybody in the state with a license is a broker, and I know that's confusing. So when we talk about BICs, just know that's the head broker, and if your agent gets in trouble as a broker, the BIC gets to ride with that broker to Raleigh to go be questioned by the Real Estate Commission. BOD, the board of directors. This could apply not just in real estate world, but in any nonprofit or corporate situation. It's the body at the top that's frankly charged with the health of the organization, and in specific in charge of the executive in charge. So while we have association executives in our trade associations, some of them have taken on the title of CEO, and they're still answering to the board. All right, then we have in real estate the C2EX. That's a program called Commitment to Excellence, and if you haven't ever heard of that, realtor friends, go to c2ex.realtor. It's an online gamified education program to help you think about upping your professionalism game in real estate. Highly recommend it. I finished it in round one, and frankly, it was a fun rabbit hole because I'm a big nerd. You also will hear about CCIMs. They wear a fancy red pen. That is the Certified Commercial Investment Member. I had to look because I couldn't remember what the I meant. But anyway, it's the tippy top of the commercial world. The people who have a CCIM designation going to tell you something. Those people can do math, and they have turned a lot of transactions to earn that designation. It is not easy, and it is very, very important when you're looking for commercial real estate to find a CCIM. Then you'll hear us talk about CE. That's continuing education. North Carolina requires 8 hours a year. I know that sounds like a lot, which it's not. It's not nearly enough, but okay. Our North Carolina continuing education, if you're a consumer, you might want to know 4 hours of that is an elective. An agent can learn anything they want. I personally accumulate excess hours because I'm a nerd, and I'm taking an extra flood class in May because of everything we've gone through in Western North Carolina. I really want to hear from my insurance pros what's the latest in flood insurance. Now, the other 4 hours, those are called the mandatory update, and that comes from the state. Here's a pro tip to you. If you're looking to hire a realtor, make sure you hire somebody that does their mandatory update 4 hours early in the cycle. Our cycle opens every year in July. I would hire a realtor that finishes their mandatory update before the calendar year ends. We do have a lot of agents that want to complete it in May, right before the deadline, which is June. Now, remember, they're learning mandatory updates that are months and months old. Just saying, hire a realtor that's willing to do their education early. A CFA, that's a call for action. Often in real estate, we hear about policy things that are happening in DC or here in North Carolina, in Raleigh, whatever state you're in. Your state may have some. Locally, we may have an issue with planning and zoning. That's when all the realtors say, hold on just a hot minute. And we get on the phone, emails, and text and let our elected officials know what's going on in real estate, because to be fair, a lot of them come from other professions and they don't know what we know, so we have an obligation to educate them. You'll also hear about the RPAC, that's the Realtors Political Action Committee, not the Republican. Even though we support Republicans, we also support Democrats and independents. In general, the way you look at it is this: we need to have somebody in a decision-making seat that's willing to take our phone calls. So in real estate, we're looking at elected officials who have specific ideas and opinions on property rights. We do not support the elected officials that don't want you to own a house. We want to make sure there is a push for property rights in this country. That includes landlord rights as well. Now, I have been getting a lot of flack here in my local county because I have given a substantial amount of money to the Realtors Political Action Committee, and they're telling me that it's terrible that the Political Action Committee gives to Democrats. Well, first of all, I don't get to control as a contributor to a PAC where the dollars go. There is a group of trustees at the top that makes that decision. But I'll point something out to you here. If you look at a state like Massachusetts, for example, that's a very blue state. If the realtors don't support blue people in a blue state, they won't have a voice or a seat at the table. You could also look at a state like Alabama, which is very red, and the realtors support reds in Alabama because they want to have a seat at the table. Now, North Carolina, being a purplish state, red most of the state, blue in the cities, the realtors tend to have advocates in the whole state because we want to make sure that neighbors in every political area with every political persuasion have the right to housing. I'm not sure why this is hard for people to understand, but I frankly love that the realtors are able to understand how we get a seat at the table, because every time I speak up, it's because there are thousands of homeowners who have used me as their realtor, and I want to make sure they can keep buying and selling real estate, y'all. So in that RPAC world, you have some that are Sterling R, that's the level of investment. Crystal R is the next level up, Golden R, and Platinum R. It just has to do with the level of financial commitment they've made to the political work. We also talk about COE a lot. Lee Brown talks about it all the time. That's our Realtor Code of Ethics. Everybody who's a realtor who belongs to the trade association agreed to abide by the Code of Ethics, and also agreed to be adjudicated by their peers in the Code of Ethics if there is a violation. There are 17 articles to the Code of Ethics, and yes, I have turned in somebody here recently for violating the Code of Ethics, because frankly, how else are they going to get better? They might not realize that what they did was over the line. You'll also hear a lot of talk about FPCs. Those are federal political coordinators. The realtors are interesting because in Washington, D.C., You have 535 members of Congress between the Senate and the House. Each one of them has a realtor assigned to them, and generally it's somebody that they've used. It's their personal realtor, a family member, or a constituent in their district, and somebody in their political party who can then convey to them the realtor message so they understand what kind of policies going on and where the voters are when it comes to property rights issues. You'll also hear about SPCs. Those are state political coordinators. In North Carolina, of course, we have legislators in Raleigh, in the Senate and in the House. The realtors want to make sure that they have as well a realtor constituent in their district who can intelligently answer their questions about real estate without hammering anybody. We're not a bunch of lobbyists. We're just people who do real estate, and we want to make sure our elected officials understand the impact on realtors and our communities. And that means we need GADs, government affairs directors. These are paid staff members who do often act as lobbyists, but they are there to make sure that we know what's in the meeting agenda, what's in the minutes, what's going on with policy and committees and proposed bills. And then they can bring that back to the day-to-day practitioner and make sure that we're aware, because frankly, when I'm working with buyers and sellers, I also cannot read all of the text in the bills. That's why we need government affairs professionals, and I appreciate them very much. Now, you'll see some realtors have GRI after their name. That's Graduate of the Realtor Institute. It is a wonderful soup to nuts program for a new licensee to get the nuts and bolts of real estate, of how it works beyond the license. The program gets revamped all the time. They've done a lot of work to make it more relevant as the markets change. Highly recommend that. It's actually the one designation I don't have. I never took GRI because it wasn't updated at the time I got into the business. Now, we talk a lot. Ooh, have you heard about the MLS? Now, agents talk about it and assume everybody knows. The MLS is the multiple listing service, and some of us refer to it as the multiple because we always shorten things. What that is a marketplace where I, as an agent, can be hired by a seller to represent their property. I add it to the database so that every other realtor has access to that listing because they may have the buyer who's been looking for that house. Statistically, it would be rare that I would always have the buyer that wants that house when that buyer may have selected their own representation. It is the best way possible for somebody selling their house to get the best market exposure, because the best market exposure tends to be other realtors because that's who buyers have selected. Of course, our portals out there, Zillow, Homes.com, Realtor.com, all the rest of them, feed their data from the multiple listing service. If realtors do not put their data into the multiple listing service so that we can have a broad, transparent marketplace, the portals become less accurate. And currently we're in a space where some brands are discussing holding their listings out of the multiple listing service to protect their sellers. Well, if they're protecting them from the best possible market exposure, it's totally working. But if you are selling a house and would like to make sure that more agents know about it so that they can tell their buyers and thus expand your pool, then make sure your agent puts you in the multiple listing service. We also have, let's see, I mentioned the WCR. Oh, you have the YPN, the Young Professionals Network. In real estate, there's no age limit. We know there's young at heart, but in general, it's the under 40s. And they are working hard to make sure that they understand what's going on in real estate and be relevant to the next generation of home buyers and sellers. And then there's my favorite designation, the CRS, the Certified Residential Specialist. I told y'all before that CCIM is the tippy top of the commercial world. CRS is the tippy top of the residential world. Those are agents who have sold a certain number of houses and taken a lot of classes to become a next level professional. We used to call it the master's degree in real estate, but there are, actual master's degree programs. This one will cost you money and time and sales. It is well worth it because then you're networking with people who are full-time real estate and care about this as their profession. And then I miss out if I don't tell you about the RLI, the Realtors Land Institute, because those that sell houses may or may not understand land. Now, I grew up on a farm. I have been selling land my entire career alongside my houses. How did I learn about it? Through mentors who understand land and through wonderful classes. Just know that in real estate, there are a lot of specialties. And that means there are people that will understand the intricacies of a different transaction, and that can impact your pocketbook, your tax situation, and ultimately your financial stability. And I should also mention in North Carolina, we have the NCVRMA, the North Carolina Vacation Rental Managers Association, because one of our top industries in North Carolina is tourism, a lot of it driven by the coast and also by the mountains, where we have a lot of vacation rental properties. That's a different specialty altogether than the property managers who do regular long-term tenants. As a consumer, think about these acronyms and these abbreviations as a way to understand where your specialist may be, because in real estate, we want you to have the best possible outcomes, and that often comes from somebody who understands what they're talking about. Let's see if I missed anything. We have the Realtors Commercial Alliance. That's our local realtors in North Carolina who are involved in commercial, the RCA. Not your old TV. My granddaddy had an RCA TV. It was a big console. You could basically dance on top of it, although we would never would have because we would have gotten beat. You have the PMD, the Property Management Division. That's the realtors who are property managers. That's called the high headache, low margin side of the business. God bless property managers. Did I miss anything? Oh, the last one. Roty, ROTY. It's a circle pin you'll see some realtors wear. That's the Realtor of the Year. And what you should know is that it is the highest award you can receive in real estate, because it's awarded by your peers who said, amongst all of us, we pick you for making us look great and for doing great things. Now, I've never won that award. Maybe one day I will, but in the meantime, I'm going to celebrate everybody that has won it, because there's something special about being recognized by your peers. That, my friends, is some of your acronyms in real estate. If you have questions about anything real estate, give me a ringy dingy, because after 25 years, I'm still learning, and you can learn along with me.